Hey guys, it's Brandon. Gonna do a little kibitzing. We've got GM Capilano Bridge on the ICC right now, and that is, of course, U.S. champion, current U.S. champion, 2700 rated player, 2760, 70, 2770 maybe. Hikaru Nakamura. Doesn't really need an introduction, but he's playing a 5-minute game here versus Philidor, FIDE Master from Sweden or Switzerland. So, yeah, let's see what's going on. Spending a little bit of time here. He's got this double fianchetto setup, and so now just castles. So it's sort of a hyper-modernish sort of system. Black playing a very solid sort of French defense pawn structure. Maybe you can expect to see c5, knight c6, development moves like that. Excuse me, my phone going off. And yeah, Naka's spending some time here, which is unusual for him in a blitz game. He's usually way faster, but maybe he just wants a little bit of a challenge. Somebody rated much lower than him. Okay, so now he decides to play e3, d3, excuse me, maybe planning e4 now after knight d2. Probably we'll see e4 coming up soon, with having enough pieces on e4. But, okay, so, and black decides not to play for c5, just the very solid Slav, semi-Slav pawn structure, but with the bishop on the outside of the pawn chain, having gotten itself to f5 on this nice diagonal. So very solid for black at the moment. But, okay, it's Hikaru, so you can expect something to happen tactically pretty soon. So now the bishop is forced to move, and he goes to g4. Interesting decision. Now he'll have to come back to h4. Also probably g6 or h7 was an option. Just tuck the bishop away and keep it on this diagonal. Not sure what he's thinking about here. I mean, isn't bishop to h5 really the only move? No? Okay, he decided to play this check first. So king h1 probably. And yeah, Naka's spending really a lot of time in this game for a 5-minute game, considering king h1 was basically the only move there. And now this bishop has to go back to h5. Yeah. So yeah, I think black is doing okay here. White has slightly more space thanks to this pawn on e4, but he's a little behind in development. I mean, that won't take too long. Knight to c3 looks like a natural sort of move, but on the other hand, knight c3 would block in the bishop on the long diagonal. So he pushes with e5, chasing the knight away from the e4 square defense. So he can probably get his knight into e4, yeah, and maybe play c4 later to chase this knight away from its nice square on d5. So the bishop retreats, and yep, c4 comes in, chasing the knight, and black still hasn't castled. You can go kingside or queenside here, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. Okay, the knight coming to b4, that's a decent square. He can be kicked back with a3 at some point, but the question is what to do with black's king in the meantime. Naka's just going forward here with f4, planning f5, trying to break things open on the f-file, and or induce and try to induce e takes f5, and then g takes f5, hitting the bishop again, and then probably playing for f6. Looks pretty strong. So black sort of has to figure out what he's going to do with his king here, and decides to go queenside. But one potential benefit of going queenside is he does have the rook on the open d file immediately. Now Naka decides not to play for anything on the king side and just starts pushing his pawns, going for mate, of course, on this file. But yeah, the problem with all these other moves that he's made is that black can try to sort of open the position a little bit quicker, and now at some point with f6 probably trying to open up lines against the king. But Naka now going for a quick b5, playing Okay, playing c5 maybe to try to blockade the c pawn and then play for b5 at some point. But black trying to double rooks here, getting some pressure on the f4 point. And Naka coming in with this knight check would be very difficult to take this knight because he'll get a very strong pass pawn. But on the other hand, that knight is pretty annoying. So the queen defending on f4. Maybe doubling rooks is a possibility, but yeah, he just decides to go for this f6 break instead because, I don't know, maybe doubling on the h-file doesn't seem to bring anything. There's no real entry points on the h-file because this pawn is just sort of stopping anything. So finally, how many moves into the game are we here? Like 26 moves into the game. Naka finally gets completely developed. And this knight looks like it may have a very nice square here on c4 later. This knight on a6 is a little bit out of play. I mean, maybe it's defending some squares around the king, but it looks a little bit questionable. So offering a rook trade, trying to take advantage of the fact that these rooks are disconnected and grabbing control on the f-file. So I'm not sure if exchanging or what is best here, but also offering and attacking the bishop. Forgot to mention that. This bishop is attacking here. And hard to say what black should do. I mean, retreating doesn't seem like such a good option. Putting the bishop on a passive square like like e8, where it won't have any life. But instead, he decides to exchange. So now this knight gets this nice square on e4, sort of recharging this knight here on d6. Very nicely placed in the center. So Naka's pieces are becoming very, very nice in this game. Maybe even rook to f7 is an idea. Attacking the pawn. Well, maybe not. Just now he has to defend this pawn again. And the rook comes back now, just to try to challenge on the f-file, just in case. So I think black is sort of hanging on here, although white's position seems much better. How are we doing on time? Yeah, Naka's got a big time advantage now. 2 minutes and 2 seconds to 50 seconds. So he's pushed now f6. This is a nice move because it gets this outpost here on f7 where he now sticks a rook, and if anything ever captures here, pawn takes f7 is a very, very strong pass pawn, very dangerous. So maybe now doubling rooks, yep. And things are looking pretty bad for black here. He doesn't seem to have any counterplay that I can distinguish. Now bringing this bishop into the game, white's king seems a little weak, but how's he getting at it? It's got pressure on this rook, but he doesn't have enough to win it yet. Bringing the bishop back. I'm not sure what this move bishop d4 is doing, but maybe it's just trying to keep the knight out of some squares here. And yeah, black is sort of reduced to this passive defense with 19 seconds left, and it's not exactly not what you want to be doing against Naka, who's now switching probably to some kingside play. Okay, now let's see the pawn takes, and this is a very strong pass pawn. And now Naka, having created this weaknesses and all this play over here on this side of the board, is going for a kingside attack. Very typical sort of thing. A lot of pressure on b6, and this position looks just hopeless for black. I don't even know how he defends taking the knight off, but now the other knight will take. No, he just decides to take with the pawn. So another strong pass pawn. And now, yeah, and now c6, these pawns are just rolling. This pawn is pinned, and black just decides to resign. I don't think there's any way for him to really defend this position. Attacking the knight and the pawn, so he can't push b6 because he just takes the knight. So, I mean, this just looks brutal. These pawns are just rolling down the board. That was really, really nice play by Nakamura. Classic sort of Nimzovichian sort of play whereby you create some weaknesses, make him play really passive, get this really strong pass pawn over here, after that maneuver, rook f7. Let's see, let's go through it here quickly. Playing on this king side, getting the rook into f7, creating after rook takes f7 this pass pawn, and oh, okay, we've got another game. So now he's playing Fedoroseyev v159 or something. That's a v195, who's a strong GM, rated 2676, so right along. Let's see if we can see who that is. Vladimir Fedoroseyev. Okay, well, that makes sense. I don't know who that is, but Whoops. Let's try to get the game back here. So Naka's playing black. So let's flip the board. And we have some kind of Dutch defense, it looks like, and we missed the opening. Yeah, with d6, b6, 2, a4, bishop b7, and then f5. So we get some kind of Dutch with white pushing this a pawn down the board here. Could be a strength or a weakness, depending on how the game goes. Later on in the end game, it could be a strength. And not if you're going to block the bishop's defense of it, though. Now it's just a pawn that's going to be captured. So that was a free pawn. And white lashing out now with g4, attacking the f5 pawn. Yeah, so that gives Naka a chance to develop the bishop with tempo. But yeah, I mean, this is a really strange position. This is one of those strange positions where, you know, two super strong players who can just sort of play this without really, like, they have no trouble playing these kinds of positions, even though I would have no idea what the heck I was doing in a position like this, and I think a lot of people wouldn't. These guys have no problem playing weird positions that you don't see very often and knowing what to do. So yeah, okay, so now getting this move c5 in, I was thinking about that. It comes in with tempo because it would be attacking this knight. But now knight b4, and the knight comes back to d5. So he's used up some time getting this knight, you know, a6, b4, d5. But black has wasted a lot of time too with a lot of pawn moves, pushing this pawn all the way down the board, pushing g4, moving this rook. His king is in the center. So I don't think this knight maneuver costs Naka at all, and he's up a pawn at the moment, I think, unless I missed something earlier when I was talking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, he's up a pawn. So now black breaking open the center, or attempting to break open the center with e4 and drive this knight back. I never know in these types of positions whether or not he should take on e4 first and then move the knight, or just, you know, move the knight right away. Probably he should take first so as not to open the g file. If he allows white to take and takes here, then the rook will be sitting on this open g file. So yeah, we see him capturing first. And can he win a pawn by taking the knight and then taking on e4? I'm not sure. Oh, he has to watch out for the queen on f7 coming in with check. This knight here is coordinating with the queen on f7. Yeah, but I guess it's just that check, and now I guess the queen, yeah, after rook f8, now the queen has to bug out of there, and maybe now the e4 pawn is hanging. So, I mean, I guess the queen could try to stay on the 7th rank here with queen g7. But you know, maybe knight to h5, but then queen takes h7. So yeah, interesting decision point here. I mean, it looks like he's in danger of going down another pawn here on e4. Yeah, he decides to stick around on g7, as mentioned, and now. Actually, yeah, this move is even stronger because this pawn is unable to recapture on c5 because the knight is hanging on e5. So winning another pawn, the e pawn is hanging. Lots of stuff hanging here. I think this Fedorosev guy got a little bit funky with a lot of these pawn moves, and Naka is making him pay. So he just decides to defend the bishop and place this knight in a pin. However, dangerous possibility here for black is knight f7 check, picking up the queen. So that's why he plays this move d6, so the bishop is no longer attacking the queen. And now moving the king here to e5 to attack this knight. So he just gets out with knight to g6, knight to g5. Now the queen coming here, b6, maybe coming down to b2 with an attack on the rook, getting on the rank here with the king. So white drummed up a little bit of play there with bishop to f4, but Naka hangs on. He can take on h7, I think, probably with the knight. Not 100% sure, but Yeah, maybe there are some pieces around the king. Yeah, maybe things could get dangerous now with this bishop on c4. Again, the f7 square could be a target. And yeah, now queen b2 attacking the rook. Rook has to go somewhere because it would fall with check. So he has to either defend it or probably move it to d1. Unless there's some move I'm missing here. Okay, yeah, c1 where it's protected by the bishop and protects this pawn. Okay, now taking this pawn here on d4. If pawn takes, probably maybe you can get away with queen takes here. I'm not sure. Instead, just plops this knight into e6, which looks like a strong move. I missed that move. Yeah, I mean, this looks really actually kind of looks a little bit dangerous for black. I mean, there's a queen, a knight, and a couple of bishops around his king, but still at the same time, white's king is now somewhat in trouble. After knight takes, now check here with the queen, and now what's the follow-up? Dropping the exchange, but is there a mate here? Knight takes, check, rook takes, pawn takes, giving the exchange but avoiding mate. Okay, he decides to grab the bishop. Tried to find a mate there, and so was Naka apparently, but I guess there wasn't one. So he grabs the bishop, the king moves, and now takes his knight. So he's just up 2 pieces for a rook here, I think, and a lot of pawns. So this is a very nice position for Naka. But wait a minute, what's going on here? Is he going to have to block? I don't think the queen has any safe squares. He's going to have to block with the knight or something. Yeah, he has to block the attack with the knight because he had no safe squares for the queen to go to. So yeah, I mean, this position should just be winning. The bishop also attacked on c4 here, so he's going to have to do something about that. Maybe bishop d3. And yeah, I mean, 2 pieces for a rook and a lot of pawns should be winning for Naka. Plus, he's got now a minute and 20 seconds advantage on the clock. So this guy Fedoseev is going to have to come up with something pretty quick. And I don't see anything. Maybe check, attacking on the king, but I don't think that's enough. And he's really letting his time run down. Okay, he played it. So what's the most accurate here? Okay, king just moving, and now the bishop coming back. Now Naka playing queen h8, attacking the h2 pawn with check was threatening to fall. So now just pushing his pawns, now getting a strong pass pawn, and offering the queen trade, which is declined. And now there was some pressure on the light squares, moving the bishop back, taking out the light square bishop. Nice move, good technique. And now with 1 second on the clock, this is over. Rook here, check, take this rook. And, well, but this knight is hanging with check. But anyway, there's only 0.8 seconds left for black. But this game is totally over. Wow, he just decided to throw in the time burner check on e8. Just because he knew he wouldn't be expecting that move and wouldn't be able to play. Okay, so now Naka's playing a 3-minute game with I am Mark Weston of the United States. And yeah, we'll see. We'll stick around for this game. We'll see maybe if he plays one more. So, what was the opening here? Oh, a Nimzo Larsen attack. b3, bishop b2. Naka likes to play this stuff in especially at the quicker time controls because people don't just know don't know it so well. You get out of theory and you can just play for chess and tactics and attacking and stuff like that, which is what Naka loves to do. So what's going on here? I really don't know. We got a bishop exchange for a knight here. So black's working with the 2 bishops, but this bishop on b2 is very strong, pointing at the black king. So maybe at some point, if allowed, he'd like to play queen h5, queen g4. Queen g4 is covered by the bishop, but maybe queen h5, get the queen out here somewhere. He'd love to take this bishop. Yeah, I don't know. I think he should have held on to that bishop because now this bishop on b2 is just a monster, pointing at the black king. Queen f3, queen to g2, pointing at this pawn here. He's going to have to play f6, a move you don't really want to play against Nakamura. So I don't know. Maybe he couldn't have held on to that d6 bishop, but that was, yeah, real could have been real trouble. This could be real trouble for Nakamura, who doesn't seem to have too many weaknesses. Okay, it's opposite color bishops, and opposite color bishop positions with queens on the board tend to favor the side who's attacking, because you want to try to get attacked because your opponent doesn't have a... Okay, now just sacrificing a pawn in order to attempt to keep the bishop. I don't know what the point of this d4 move was. I guess maybe he thought he couldn't hold on to the pawn on d4 anyway. Naka doesn't even take it right away. He just plays c4, and I guess now we'll take it with the rook. Yeah, rook takes, queen takes. Naka's just up a clean pawn with control of the d file. So really the only chance to draw here is for black to head to the endgame and really hope that he can get a opposite color bishop draw. But I don't think we'll be seeing Naka playing for a draw, an endgame here. He'll try to keep up the attack. Yeah, keeping pressure on this pawn. Now he was threatening to take the g pawn because this pawn would have been pinned, the f pawn. So that's why the queen came to d8. Now the king getting out of any pins on the g file, so the queen can move. So yeah, okay, he's got somehow through these defensive moves though, he's managed to get control of the d file. So, however, with the bishop here on c3, he's cutting out any penetration to d2 for the rook, which is nice, although the rook can still penetrate to d1. So maybe some compensation for the pawn, some drawing chances, but I wouldn't bet on Naka losing this game. Maybe now playing for e5. Yeah, now queen takes e5. Oh, I thought queen takes e5, pressuring g7 would have been better. Threatening rook takes g7. But, or actually even queen takes g7, rook takes, and then bishop takes check, mate. And now pressuring g7 some more from the side this time, and really going after the g7 pawn now. g6 can't be played. Yeah, he just resigns. g6 can't be played because of f7 check, mate, picking up the bishop, or forcing the queen to interpose or the rook to interpose, or the queen would have to interpose because there would be nothing to stop the checkmate otherwise. This bishop here is sort of entombing the king, and yeah, this is very, very dangerous. I think he was right to resign here. There's no real hope here. Takes, bishop takes, check. The only thing to do is interpose, check. Queen take. I mean, he's just going to be down a whole lot of material, so he resigned and down some of the time. So, all right, we got a few good games in there, a few interesting games. We'll give it maybe 30 more seconds, see if he plays one more. But otherwise, I think we will call it a video here. Yeah, he doesn't seem to be playing anymore here. So I don't have my function to show, but you can just imagine if pawn takes, bishop takes, check, he'd have to interpose something, so it would be the rook, and then check, queen takes, checkmate. So there's just there's nothing. So all right, looks like he's not going to play anymore at the moment. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that video, and we will see you next time.